The light from the machine is the only thing breaking the absolute darkness on this country road. It's 3 a.m., and I'm looking at a glass box filled with drinks and, more importantly, a day's worth of cash in its coin box. No lock, no shutter, no camera in sight. Just a silent, glowing promise that it will be exactly as I left it tomorrow. Now, imagine trying to explain this scene to someone from almost any other major city in the world. Their mind wouldn't jump to the convenience, it would jump to the inevitable. They'd picture it shattered, emptied, a monument to a naivete that could last a single night. That's the real shock, isn't it? Not that the machine exists, but that its continued existence isn't shocking here at all. It's a paradox that feels like a quiet taunt. In one society, this is just a vending machine. In another, it's an impossible fantasy of public trust. And that glowing box on a dark road forces a single, uncomfortable question. What does it say about us, about what we've built, when the most mundane object becomes a symbol for everything we've lost? So in this deep dive, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to reverse engineer the engine that drives that impossible fantasy.
Right. Using that vending machine as the key, really, the entry point.
Exactly. How does Japan manage to build and, more importantly, sustain this incredibly high-trust society? A place where safety isn't something you buy with an alarm system.
It's just there, like a public utility.
Yeah, like the lights being on. We're going to dig into the cultural roots,
Yeah.
how it's actually taught in schools, which is fascinating.
And then how that same mindset shapes industry, this idea of Monozukuri.
Right. And finally, how all of that translates into national policy, especially when facing this huge challenge of an aging population.
And our mission here is to get way beyond the simple stereotypes, the superficial stuff.
Sure.
We want to understand that this social cohesion, it isn't just there. It's not an accident. It is actively made.
Right. Manufactured.
Through conscious policy, through the education system, through a deliberate societal choice to put the collective first.
But that choice has to have a cost. It comes with trade-offs.
Huge trade-offs. And we have to dissect those, the challenges, like gridlock in decision-making, or maybe a slower pace for certain kinds of innovation.
So it's the full picture, the cost and the benefit of running a modern society this way.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's start with that fundamental feeling, that mental switch you have to flip when you enter a high-trust environment.
Yeah.
I mean, for anyone coming from a place where the default setting is low trust, where you're always kind of expecting someone to take advantage, the difference must be jarring.
It is. It creates this kind of cognitive dissonance, right? A real mental shock. And there's this one anecdote that just captures it perfectly, the story of the unlocked bicycle.
Okay.
So our source is talking about a newcomer who lived in a few low-trust places. The U.S. is mentioned, Moscow as well.
Races where an unlocked bike has a lifespan of about 5 minutes.
If you're lucky. The expectation is theft. It's the norm. So for them, hearing people say, oh, you don't need to lock your bike here, it was just unbelievable.
It sounds like a trap. I mean, I could feel that skepticism myself. You spend your whole life being taught to lock everything down because if you don't, it's gone.
That's the conditioning. Exactly. So one day, just out of curiosity, the newcomer's wife decides to test it.
Oh, this is a bad idea.
You'd think so. She leaves her bike completely unlocked right in front of a busy supermarket just to see what happens.
Yeah.
She comes back and the bike is gone.
Of course.
And she immediately calls her husband, feeling totally vindicated, like, see, I told you so. The social contract is a lie.
The expectation was met, it was stolen, or maybe already stripped for parts on some secondary market.
That was the immediate assumption based on all prior experience. So what actually happened?
I have a feeling it's not that simple.
Not at all. This is the pivot. They file a report, and the police are just completely calm about it. Zero alarm.
Really?
And they just calmly suggest, ma'am, have you checked the designated bicycle parking spot just around the corner? So she goes there, and sure enough, there's her bike, parked perfectly in line with all the others.
What happened?
What happened was she'd parked it improperly. She was blocking the walkway, and a complete stranger, seeing this unlocked bike, didn't see an opportunity for theft.
They saw a problem to be solved.
An inconvenience to the collective. And they took the time to move it to the correct designated spot specifically so that it would not get towed.
That is a fundamental rewrite of the behavioral assumption. The impulse wasn't exploitation, it was preservation, it was order.
An active obligation to order.
So what's the mechanism behind that decision? Is it fear? Are they afraid of getting caught? Or is it something deeper, a genuine philosophy of not causing trouble for others?
Well, it's less about fear in that specific moment. I mean, they could have just ridden off on it, right?
Quite easily.
It's much more about that philosophical obligation not to inconvenience the collective. The sources really suggest this points to a kind of a collective ownership of public space and public order.
And that leads to the crucial point. This isn't natural. It's not in the genes. It's manufactured.
It's made. Absolutely. This Japaneseness, this cohesion, it's a learned behavior. I mean, you look at Tokyo in the mid-20th century, and it was apparently very divided, very contentious.
So this harmony we see today is the result of deliberate social engineering.
Deliberate and systematic. And it starts very, very early.
In the school system.
In the school system. At age 6, when kids enter public elementary school, which is, over 98% of all students in the country, that's the engine.
The factory for creating this specific kind of identity.
That's a good way to put it. They're actively teaching children how to operate in a high-trust collective world, and they do it through these formal mandatory practices.
Okay, so what does that actually look like? What is this formal training?
The key practice is something called Gakkaka.
Gakkaka.
And it's mandated once a week, starting from age 6. And it's basically rigorous training in group discussion and collective decision-making.
So it's not just a class project.
No, it's structured. They're given real challenges. They have to argue out, debate, and ultimately come to a single decision together. And here's the crucial part.
What's that?
There's no designated leader. There's no referee. The kids have to manage the whole dynamic themselves.
So they're being formally trained in how to build consensus, how to navigate disagreement without just escalating or running to a teacher.
Exactly. And the goal is to embed this idea of Omoyari.
Which is often translated as empathy, but that's not quite it, is it?
No, it's a poor translation. Omoyari is deeper. It's the consciousness of your effect on other people and this deliberate effort to avoid inconveniencing them.
So the goal is for a child to feel someone else's failure as if it's their own.
Yes. So the collective's outcome becomes more important than your own individual satisfaction. If a group decision goes wrong, everyone feels the shame of it. Even the kids who argued against it, they've inconvenienced the teacher, the class.
So from the very beginning, your identity is being welded to the success of the group.
Inextricably. And that brings us to this really complex idea of identity itself. It's so easy to just fall back on the simple binary, collectivist versus individualist.
Right.
But the sources give a much richer insight. The real difference is in how the individual is formed. In Japan, you learn to become an individual in relation to the collective.
Your identity is built by learning how to be with other people.
It's an outward-looking process, a constant calibration against the group, against that social mirror.
Whereas the Western model, especially the American one, is often framed as an inward journey, right, to find yourself.
Exactly. A journey of self-discovery that happens in what one source calls an enclosed space of the self. It's often about becoming independent from social obligations.
And that leads to a totally different outcome.
A fundamentally different outcome. If you define yourself by your connection to the group, then moving that stranger's bicycle is an act of self-maintenance. It's maintaining your own world.
But if you define yourself by your own internal wants and needs,
then taking the bike is just an act of maximum individual freedom.
Okay, so this cohesion produces incredible public safety and order. The vending machine is proof of that. But we have to look at the full picture, the costs.
Right.
If a society is so focused on consensus and obedience, does that make things like governance or business agile? Is it efficient?
And that's the core friction. It's a paradox, really. The society is incredibly cohesive, but the sources point out it's not very good at collective action.
What does that mean exactly?
It means the model is fantastic for stability, for maintaining the status quo, but it completely locks up when you need radical change. Or speed. If you design an education system to produce obedient, risk-averse citizens, well, it becomes inherently difficult to foster entrepreneurs or disruptive ideas.
Because entrepreneurship is the ultimate act of disruption, isn't it? It's about breaking the norm, which is exactly what the collective is trying to protect.
Precisely. And you see this paralysis in big Japanese companies and government agencies every single day.
For big decisions, I imagine.
Massive decisions, a new infrastructure project, a whole new line of business. The process is agonizingly long.
Why?
Because everyone must agree. Everyone has to be included in the consultation process.
So you're sacrificing efficiency for inclusion.
Consistently. The goal is to make sure no one feels left out, even if that means the whole train grinds to a halt. It causes immediate gridlock, especially when there's no clear boss, when, as one source puts it, no one is clearly in charge.
It just locks up.
It locks up. And this is made even worse by the culture of extreme politeness and this deep fear of public shaming. The idea of meiwaku.
Not causing trouble for others.
Right. But it has huge implications for professional disagreement. In a corporate meeting, for example.
What do they look like?
It creates situations where people are so worried about the group dynamic that they literally don't say anything controversial.
They won't challenge an idea publicly.
The fear of saying something in front of everybody and then getting it wrong it's paralyzing. It stops quick ideas. It stops critical analysis. You could run a meeting for an hour, ask questions, and all you'll hear is, yes, I agree.
So how do you ever get a real opinion?
You have to shrink the audience. You have follow-up meetings in smaller and smaller groups until you're basically talking one-on-one.
Like a high-stakes game of corporate musical chairs.
That's a perfect analogy. It's like the bureaucracy weaponizes politeness. They'll give you the real friction, the honest feedback, but only in a trusted private space, never in front of the whole group.
And this is why you hear about decisions taking so long.
This is the needle analogy from the sources.
Yeah.
Decision-making can take an almost unbelievable amount of time, 10 years for a major company to commit to a big investment.
10 years. In today's economy, that just seems impossible.
It's the trade-off. But, and this is the critical other half of it, once that consensus is finally reached,
Once the needle moves.
everything happens very quickly. The implementation is incredibly rapid and thorough because now everyone, from the CEO down to the assembly line, is completely bought in. There's no friction.
You trade speed up front for perfect execution on the back end.
Yes. You trade upfront agility for long-term consistency.
And this tension, this speed versus consensus issue, it must define their whole approach to innovation. We think of Japan as a tech giant, but you do hear this criticism about them lacking that Silicon Valley-style disruption.
That's the innovation paradox that comes out of this system. Japan's traditional strength isn't in raw initial invention. It's in what the sources call polishing and refinement.
Taking something that already exists and making it perfect.
Exactly. They excel at taking inventions from elsewhere and elevating them into these incredibly high-quality, complex products.
Give me some examples.
Okay, think about cars, video games,
There.
or even ramen. The source points out that traditional Chinese noodle soup uses a single clean stock, right? Chicken or fish.
Yeah.
Ramen is a Japanese innovation because they mastered mixing and refining those stocks together, creating that complex, layered flavor. It's about becoming hardcore, becoming otaku, about perfecting the final product.
This points to two completely different economic philosophies. The U.S. model seems, addicted to growth.
That's the phrase the source uses, an addiction to growth. If you're not growing, you're dead.
Whereas Japan is more comfortable with
What?
stability.
Stability and deep quality over endless scaling. And this is tied to a really profound difference in how they think about fairness.
Fairness. How does that connect to innovation?
Well, the American model is all about fairness of opportunity. The idea that anyone can become an entrepreneur, anyone can strike it rich.
And we tolerate massive inequality, we tolerate billionaires because they're proof that the system is open.
Exactly. Japan, on the other hand, tends to prioritize fairness of outcome. There's a deep societal preference for results that aren't wildly unequal.
And entrepreneurship is, by definition, unfair. One person gets an exponential advantage and makes a ridiculous amount of money.
Which clashes directly with that idea of outcome fairness. It acts as a cultural brake on the whole system. To get outcome fairness, you need rules and social structures that actively discourage that kind of explosive individual wealth.
So innovation has to happen in a different way.
It's relegated to a niche. A small community of outliers is tolerated, but it's not the cultural ideal. It becomes an economy focused on mastery and perfection, not an economy focused on speed and disruption.
And a deep focus on perfection, on quality, brings us right to the heart of Japanese industry. Monozukuri.
Yes.
Which is so much more than just making things.
Oh, it's a world away from that translation. Monozukuri is a whole philosophy. It's about high-quality craftsmanship. It's about the relentless pursuit of perfection. That's Kaizen, continuous improvement. Right. But it's also about a sense of social obligation, a duty to meet the highest demands of your society.
So it has a spiritual or civic dimension to it.
Absolutely. The roots go way back to Zen Buddhism, to the craftsmanship of making samurai swords, ceramics. That's the foundation for the high standards you still see today.
And for anyone who's ever owned a Japanese product, the key is consistency. The quality isn't a one-time thing. It's maintained for decades.
And that's their real competitive advantage. That's what's so hard for other countries to replicate. It's one thing to make one good product in one factory. It's another to sustain that quality across a whole supply chain for 20 years.
And this commitment is tied to really understanding the user, isn't it? Going beyond just the specs on a sheet of paper.
Yes, it's a user's perspective philosophy. A company like Konishi, they make adhesives. They don't just ask what the customer wants. They watch how they use the product.
To anticipate their needs.
Exactly. To make it easier to apply, cleaner to use, they feel a duty to make it happen for the end user.
Let's get specific. How does this philosophy actually change the manufacturing process on the factory floor, especially when it comes to something like safety?
Okay, the production of safety shoes at a company called Simon Corporation is a perfect example of Kaizen in action.
Okay.
Their core rule on the production line is that every single employee must view the next person in the assembly line as their customer.
Ah, so it's an internal customer.
It's an internal customer. This simple rule minimizes defects because everyone takes personal responsibility for the quality of their piece of the work before they pass it on.
That's the collective mindset on an assembly line.
Yeah.
An internal trust mechanism.
And then the final product reflects that same level of care. Their main product is this SX3 layer safety shoe. It has all the obvious safety features, great grip, stable sole.
Sure.
But the real Monozukuri insight is it's focused on the long-term health of the worker. The company president actually suffered from plantar fasciitis.
Which is a crippling foot condition for anyone who stands all day.
Exactly. And he realized that standard safety shoes were making his pain worse. So the redesign became a mission to solve that problem.
So safety isn't just about preventing a fall today.
It's about making sure that worker is still healthy and productive 20 years from now. That level of dedication to your employee or your customer, it's a fundamental commitment to the well-being of the collective.
Which moves this whole conversation from just product quality to social obligation. And that's critical when you start talking about huge global challenges like the environment.
It is. That historical drive for perfection is now intersecting with the urgent need for sustainability.
The commitment of Monozukuri now has to be about contributing to a sustainable future.
And Japanese corporations are absolutely aligning their long-term plans toward carbon neutrality by 2050. They see it as a societal imperative, not just, a box to tick for regulations.
So let's look at some examples of these green innovations. How about a heavy industry like aluminum?
Okay. UACJ Corporation, major aluminum manufacturer. Aluminum production is traditionally very energy intensive, very high in CO2.
Right.
So UACJ's focus is on closed-loop recycling. And this is key because making aluminum from recycled scrap emits 97% less CO2 than making it from raw ore.
97%. That's a staggering number.
It completely changes the environmental footprint of a basic industrial material.
And how are they applying that mastery to more immediate social problems like disaster relief?
Right. Japan is obviously vulnerable to natural disasters. So UACJ developed this lightweight aluminum flood prevention system. It's called MIZYOJNTM.
Which means beware of water.
Exactly. And it's designed so that ordinary people, store managers, can quickly put up these barriers to protect buildings and subways from flash floods. It replaces heavy, slow sandbags.
That is classic Monozukuri, using high-tech mastery to solve a real pressing social need.
It is.
We mentioned material science before, and specifically cellulose nanofiber, or CNF. This sounds really futuristic.
It is. Dio Paper makes a version called ELX, and it's designed to replace materials made from fossil fuels.
So what is it?
It's derived from wood pulp, essentially the super refined building blocks of trees. And what makes it revolutionary is its strength-to-weight ratio. It's actually stronger and lighter than carbon fiber.
Stronger than carbon fiber, but it's renewable. From trees.
That's the holy grail, right? Especially for industries like automotive that are desperate to decarbonize.
So how have they shown this works?
They partnered with a racing team for the Pikes Peak Hill climb. They replaced a bunch of parts on Nissan spoilers, body panels, with parts made from CNF.
And the result?
A 51% weight reduction in those specific parts, which cut 60 kilograms off the total weight of the car.
51% is huge. For an electric car, that means much better range and efficiency. So why isn't it everywhere already?
The usual challenges with a new wonder material. The processing is expensive, scaling up is hard. But Diapaper is investing with that long-term collective vision.
Right.
They point out that carbon fiber took 50 years to go mainstream, but with the pressure of 2050 climate goals, they think CNF will be much, much faster.
What's the timeline?
They're predicting 5 to 25 years before you see it making a major impact across multiple industries, driven by that national need to decarbonize.
So we've seen how this collective mindset is built into education, into industry. Now let's apply it to Japan's biggest domestic challenge. Its rapidly aging and declining population.
Right.
How does a government with this long-term disciplined vision strategically manage what you might call an elegant decline?
Yeah. The entire national approach is about realizing a society where all generations can play an active role. It's not about pushing seniors aside, it's about integrating them.
Yeah.
The strategy is built on longevity, employment, and really robust social support.
If your population's getting older, you have to extend the time people can contribute. It's an economic necessity.
And it's codified in policy. The government ensures stable employment for anyone who wants it up to age 65, but they're also actively creating an environment where people can work into their 70s and beyond.
Based on ability, not just age.
Based on motivation and ability. That's a profound shift. And they're reviewing the Social Security and pension systems to support this. Well, for one, you can already choose when you start taking your pension, anytime between 60 and 70. And they're looking at ways to make it more financially appealing to postpone it even later.
So you're incentivizing people to stay active longer.
Which benefits everyone, the individual and the national economy. They're also really focused on protecting the assets of older people, encouraging financial institutions to create products suited for them, and protecting them from fraud.
It's a holistic approach.
Very. It links financial policy directly to health and cognitive ability to protect the collective's most vulnerable members.
Okay, beyond work, what about health and long-term care? That's obviously a massive issue.
It's paramount. And the focus isn't just on treatment, it's on prevention. They call it long-term care prevention, or LTCP.
What does that mean in practice?
It's not about just providing beds in a nursing home, it's a rehabilitation philosophy. The goal is to support an older person's independence for as long as humanly possible.
To keep them out of institutional care.
Exactly. And they do this by integrating health services into the community. They're setting up these places for social gathering, not just passive senior centers, but active hubs run by nonprofits and volunteers.
To fight social isolation and keep people active?
To fight isolation, to encourage movement, to sustain cognitive function. The community itself takes responsibility for the health of its aging members.
What about a specific challenge like dementia?
There's a targeted strategy for that called the New Orange Plan. The focus is on rapid local intervention. As soon as there's a diagnosis, these initial phase intensive support teams get involved to create a coordinated care plan for the patient and their family.
And the larger goal
is to build communities that are genuinely friendly to people with dementia and their caregivers. They're creating dementia medical centers to provide the right level of care, but also to educate the public and reduce the stigma. It's a shared burden.
If you want older people to be active and mobile, the physical world has to change too. The infrastructure.
That's a huge ongoing priority, making everything barrier-free. Public transport, sidewalks, buildings. It's expensive, but it's seen as essential. They're literally removing utility poles from streets near hospitals and stations to make them safer.
And what about traffic safety? Elderly drivers are a big concern everywhere.
They're targeting it with very specific measures. They're continuously reviewing the licensing system for older drivers, but they're also redesigning community roads to eliminate dangerous through traffic and control vehicle speeds using scientific data.
This is a massive integrated system of social management. How is technology being used to support all this?
Technology is central to their national vision, which they call Society 5.0.
Okay.
The goal is to use AI, big data, IoT, all of it, to solve health problems like dementia and frailty. For seniors, this could mean remote health monitoring, AI-driven mobility assistance, things like that.
But older people can often be left behind by technology.
And they know that. So there's a specific coordinated effort to improve what they call ICT literacy among older people, to develop support systems to help them use the technology. The tech has to serve the collective, not just the young.
Japan is on the leading edge of this demographic shift. Are they trying to share what they're learning with the rest of the world to export this model?
They are. They actively want to spread Japan's findings to the international community. And it's not just about exporting the hardware, like a medical device. It's about exporting the software.
The system itself.
The institutional knowledge, the values. There's a perfect example of this in Manila, with a subway system Japan helped build.
What was the issue?
Japan provided the high-quality trains, the tracks, all the hardware. But once it was handed over to the local engineers, the trains stopped running on time. The system became inefficient.
The Monozukuri hardware was there, but the discipline wasn't.
The software was missing. So Japan added a second phase, a technical training academy run by JICA.
To teach the system.
To teach the operational routines, the maintenance schedules, the value system required to run things with precision. They are literally exporting the intangible discipline of not inconveniencing thousands of people with a delay.
Which brings us right back to where we started. That simple glowing vending machine on a dark road.
And what we found is that the trust that keeps that machine safe it's entirely constructed. It's engineered.
It starts in elementary school with Omoyari and learning to be part of a group.
It's reinforced by an industrial philosophy, Monozukuri, that puts quality and social good above pure profit or speed.
And finally, it's supported by these huge national policies designed to manage the future of the entire collective, from cradle to grave.
It is a deliberate, consistent societal choice.
And a stark contrast to many other developed nations.
Our deep dive reviews that while societies can choose the path maximum individual freedom, a path that often requires citizens to build high walls, carry weapons, and live with the constant threat of opportunism, Japan demonstrates a rigorous alternative, choosing maximum collective discipline. That discipline, born of a fear of shame, a philosophical obligation not to inconvenience others, and hyper-awareness of one's place within the group, is the true, costly engine that delivers safety as a public utility. It's the luxury that allows citizens to walk away from that glowing glass box full of cash on a dark road, secure in the knowledge that the painstakingly constructed order will hold.